Hey guys, Rob here from Room 301. Today I'm joined by Dani McNabb as we talk about the importance of effective product positioning and also why there is so many challenges associated with the storytelling in tech marketing and much, much more. Let's get into it. Dani, so people don't buy products, they buy solutions to their problems. What, in your mind, is the biggest mistake that companies make when positioning their products?
So the biggest mistake I see when I'm joining businesses or speaking to businesses about the things that they're doing and how they're positioning is a lot of times the way that they're positioning is about their features rather than the benefits for the end user. What a system does, say, for example, me as a consumer, what a system does, I'm not interested in what it does. I'm interested in what it's going to do to solve a problem for me. So I think there's a lot that can be said around storytelling in particular for products. And storytelling for tech products is in particularly a big challenge because you're selling something that's not going to immediately impact someone's life. It's not something tangible that a person can hold. It's something that's just going to quietly be in the background and make someone's life better. And if it's not right, or if you're not positioning it right, you're just not going to sell it. Whereas if you get the messaging right, um, and you're telling people what it's going to do to solve their problems, it can just have such a phenomenal difference in uptake and customers resonating with the story that you're telling them.
So from a B2B perspective and knowing what I know about you, you're trying to get the software you promote and market in front of big, huge organizations. What sort of channels do you use to project that message and tell that story?
So a lot of the things that we do within our marketing to promote ourselves is, we do the typical things. There's LinkedIn advertising, there's SEA, there's events and things like that. But the business that I work in, we've been in the market for a long time. A lot of what we rely on is, in particular, because we're in the building society market in the UK. Building societies speak to building societies. So they need to know that who they're working with is somebody that's reputable, somebody that's well known, somebody that's going to take them seriously, and somebody that's going to ultimately treat them as a partner rather than a customer. So it depends. So one of the products I work on is very much word of mouth, people saying good things about them. And the other one is about industry standing. So one of the other products I work on is based in the United States. And how we position there, again, is totally different because it's more of a FOMO approach in the United States, whereas here it's more word of mouth. So the products I work on are wildly different. But yeah, most of what we rely on is the words of our customers.
Nice. And you mentioned in the before we started recording, we are having a bit of a chat there. So, and you just mentioned there, you sort of have products that are based in the US. I think you said you worked in France and Paris as well. So, have you noticed any cultural differences in terms of how you try and take your product to market between those different
Huge.
areas?
Huge differences. So the business that I currently work for, we have 1,500 clients in 80 countries, literally all across the world. And how you position is so different. And it's interesting working for a French company and working on a UK product and a US product, because sometimes the way that someone centrally in France would position something would be wildly different than what the market locally is used to. So even the United States and the UK, there's the language is the same, but the spelling is different, and then how you approach even those two geographies is wildly different. Whereas we have clients in Europe, a lot of them are very similar, but still, you move from even France to Switzerland, you've got a little bit of a change there, a little bit of a change in positioning. There's change in regulation, not hugely in Europe because a lot of Europe is governed wildly the same, but even the UK to Europe, now that we're, post Brexit, we've got different regulation, although some of it's similar, there's nuances of it. And then there's the nuances of language. Obviously, if you're presenting somebody to a French business, they don't want to speak English, and that's fine. That's totally understandable. Just like somebody in the UK wouldn't want to be speaking French if you're presenting a product to them. So there's a lot of differences. There's a lot of differences in how you approach your clients. There's a lot of differences in how you speak to them, how you position your products. And it's really interesting working for a global business and seeing how different product marketers, so people that are in my position would position things in Africa and how they would position things in the United States, in South America, in Northern Europe, etc. It's all wildly different, and to understand the nuances and why then kind of helps me if I'm thinking, oh, I've got this challenge, I don't know how to overcome it, and they tell me how they've overcome it. A lot of it is, well, that won't work for me because of these reasons, but I could try this, this, and this. And then it's sort of problem solving and getting experience without having to make the failures first.
Got you. That's super interesting. Do you look after any particular territories? Are you sort of in charge of UK and you know?
So with product marketing, we look after products, and our products are sometimes geography based. One of the products I work on is a mortgage and savings platform that's in the UK, predominantly serves building societies. And the other two products that I work on work in a specialized finance. So that's around kind of leasing vehicles and like equipment. That is, we hold a humongous chunk of the European market and expanding into the US. So the products that I work across are predominantly Northern Europe, US and UK. But I have previously worked on another product that was predominantly Europe. So for us, it really depends on what product you're using rather than a set geography that you're in.
Got you. That makes sense. Well, that leads nicely into our first question. So everything you spoke about there has made me think you must be very busy on a day-to-day basis. I know before we started recording, you were telling me it's been a busy week. So the first question we always ask our guests is what's in your toolbox? Now, the people that I typically speak to and interview on this show are busy. They're often managing teams. They've often got big workloads, working in big companies, managing big marketing budgets, etc. Now, there's lots of tools available to help us do our job. Now, what's in your toolbox? What do you use to stay on top of your workload, manage teams, manage campaigns, product marketing, etc.?
So this is going to sound really silly, but this is coming from somebody who works in a big business and who specializes in a type of marketing. The biggest thing that helps us get things done is collaboration. I think as we had talked about before when we were talking about getting together and having a conversation was kind of the power of a group. I have the experience of being the person who does marketing and does everything. And you have to know SEO and you have to know how to design websites, etc. But the thing that helps us get stuff done is I have a person that looks after the digital stuff. I know digital stuff, so I know what she's doing, but when she makes recommendations to me, I take her recommendations. We've got a couple of ops people in the different geographies that we're in. I take their recommendations, that goes into my work. I take work that the design team has done, that goes in. But everything, working in such a big business where you've got like 80 people that are in marketing, and you have so many people that you can call upon and get so much little expertise. I don't have to worry about things at a granular level. I worry about product and I worry about how we position product, but everything else kind of seeps into that. And if you've not worked in that before, it's really, really challenging to come into it. When I first came into the business, it was like, no, I want to have my hands in the search engine work we're doing. I want to have my hands in the LinkedIn work that we're doing. I want to kind of control it. And if you're used to being the marketing person, letting go and having people come in and bring their expertise is initially a challenge, but when you then see the benefit that it brings you in the work that you're singularly doing, the work of everybody else influences the work that I do. And ultimately, I couldn't do the work that I do if it wasn't for all of the people around me.
It's a really good way to think about it. And then, given that you are a global business, are you pretty much remote? Are you quite remote as a business? Working across Zoom and Teams and whatnot.
Yes and no. So, certain people like me, where I'm based in the north of England, the people that I work with are in the south of England. It's a bit of a trek to go in a couple of days a week.
Sure.
I think, as I was saying to you before we started recording, I'm in Paris more often than I am in an office in the UK.
And it's not like Emily in Paris.
It is not like Emily in Paris. It is not that glamorous. It's interesting. Yes, it's interesting, and it's challenging if you don't speak French and you've been trying to learn French the last 2 years. That's that's an interesting challenge. But yeah, most of the time, I'm it's difficult for me to get into an office because of geographically where I am. But at the same point, I work with people that are in a French office and they'll go in 3 days a week. And it's brilliant when you go into the central office in Paris, where the bulk of our marketing team is, because there are so many people there. And the conversations you hear and the conversations you have are really, really valuable. And that is something that you do miss if you're working from home. But being as busy as I am, I can't drive. I can't drive nearly 4 hours down south to go to our office down there all the time. But I do make an effort to kind of get there a couple of times, a few times a year, get to Paris a few times a year. So it's kind of more about timing that collaboration. But for our business in particular, it was important that somebody was in the UK, spoke the language, understood it, because building societies, if you speak to somebody in France about building societies, they don't understand the difference between banks. So understanding the market was a big challenge for the business when I came in, and having someone here is helpful. But then when you have offices based here, there, and everywhere, it might not be possible to have somebody that goes into the office all the time. So I'm maybe a unique case, but a lot of people are in our offices. Product teams are all in the offices, and it is, as I say, great to get in and speak to them.
Sure. So obviously you've pinpointed and highlighted collaboration as a something that really helps you be productive. Now, I know it sounds like a lot of the team are based in the office, but how do you get yourself involved in that collaboration? Have you got any tools that you use to sort of foster that internally?
Yeah, so I mean, there's, obviously everything that we do is is via Teams or some other sort of video conferencing thing. We have everybody that in our business works across one board on Notion. We've created one nice big board where I can see everything that the content team are doing. I can see when it's due. If it involves me, I'm tagged in it. If it involves my product, I'm tagged in it. If I want to see what's another product's working in, I can go and I can filter and I can go and look for it. But having a big central repository where everything is kept, so if somebody's sick, say for example, things don't stop, everything keeps moving. And we do everything. We have SharePoint pages where we share all of the content that we've been building for our sales team. We put that up in a central location. So again, if I want to see something that somebody in France has been working on, I can go and I can see their latest files. But then we also have a secret kind of back folder where we keep our product marketing stuff, which is some of the more specific stuff that isn't potentially customer facing. Um, and we document everything. And I think that is so important. When you come in and you see that there's been no documentation done on something in a couple of years, maybe because the business has deemed that that part of the business wasn't a priority, or maybe there wasn't somebody working there, whatever it might be, when you come in and you don't know what's been happening for the last 2 or 3 years, that's a challenge. So us having come in and seeing some of that in the last few years, those of us that have worked there 4 years plus, have come in and know that challenge. So it's, yes, we need to keep that document. We need to put that away somewhere so that if something happens to me, somebody can go and review all of this and see everything that's happened in the last few years.
And do you use selfishly asking this question because it's something I'm looking at the minute, and do you use anything in particular for documentation, or is it simply just a document, Word document, whatever it might be?
So there's a couple of different platforms that we've tried and used. We used Clue for a while for competitive analysis, but when you are a global business and a lot of your competitors are competitors for multiple products, that can be a challenge, because if you have one big product and you update that portfolio, that profile on Clue, and it's all about that one product, my smaller product, I might come in and look at that and go, well, that's not of use. So we used Clue for a bit. It was good, but I think there are ways that we want to have a little bit more control over it, so we changed that. But a lot of what we do is we've created specific documents and specific ways of documenting things, and we keep. I know it sounds kind of. I don't want to say that it sounds basic, because it's not basic, but it's simple and it's there and it's cost effective. We put everything. We have hubs on SharePoint. We have a sales hub. Everything that's to do with sales goes on that hub. Everything that's product goes on one hub. Everything that's product marketing goes on another hub. Everything that's field marketing goes on another hub. So there's just these big libraries of information. And I mean, it's simple, but if you set up SharePoint right, SharePoint is exactly what you need. You don't really need anything too wild and crazy. But then when you're talking about the stuff that goes out to customers, the one that I think is probably the best, and the one that I've seen implemented the best, is Seismic. Being able to see which one of your customers have looked at what documents you've sent them, and being able to keep them all in one place, and not just marketing material, but the sales team would use it to send out, RFPs and kind of contracts and things like that, so they can see who's looked at it, how long they've looked at it, and then they can follow up with them if they've, say for example, not heard anything from them for a while, or if it's somebody that they're reaching out to, somebody that's that kind of cold emailing. If somebody keeps opening things, then they know, well, they might be interested. I just might maybe need to probe a little bit. So it kind of depends what you're looking to store and who you're looking to share it with.
Okay, cool. That's always quite comforting for me because obviously we're a tiny, minuscule business compared to the likes of yourself. And sometimes I, run the risk of boiling the ocean. Like, let's find a really fancy tool to store all our, processes and stuff. But
Keep
actually,
it simple.
let's
Keep
just
it
create a
simple.
repository in Google Drive or SharePoint, whatever it might be.
Yeah, keep it simple.
Excellent. Well, look, the next part of the podcast, and a question I love to ask, because I always think anyone who's found themselves in a successful position in any role, but obviously this is around marketing and things like that, is you have to go through some failures. So, what are some failures you've had? And there is bonus points if it's funny.
Bonus points if it's funny. Um, Probably the funniest one. Well, I say funniest. It wasn't funny at the time, but
I was going to
looking
say they
back,
never are funny at the time, but
no,
hindsight and all
it's not
that.
funny. So I was working at a business. It was our key sales time of the year. And we had just implemented a new email system. We had hyper segmented everything out, spent a long time doing it. And somebody from one of our departments came to me with an email and said, we'd like to send this email to all of our existing customers. It's an email telling them that we're closing an inbox that we've been using for the last 20 years. We're going to close it and people rely on it. Sure, no big deal. I read it. Yeah, looks fine. So we thought, yeah, let's test this email platform that we've got, put it on, send it to all email, all email contacts, put their account manager at the bottom of it, send. You sit literally sitting in an office and the phones start ringing and going absolutely crazy. And you sat there kind of going, what's happening? And people like waving like at me, just what? You go over, people think people think the business is shutting. They think the business is shutting. No, read the email. It says this email address is closing, but they just got an email, seen it. I didn't write it. Somebody from another team wrote it. I read it. I understood what they meant, but they just seen the word closure during our key sales time of the year, and everybody went, hang on a minute, are you pulling our cover, what's happening? um, and then what happened is the business overthought it was, let's get every single manager in a room and talk about what a failure I am. I didn't write the email. I just clicked send. But then it was, we must have oversight on every list that you have, we must have oversight on every email that you send. And then this process evolved that everybody had to sign off on anything that I sent. And that lasted about 2 weeks. And then I went, okay, I haven't had sign off from these two people. The accountant hasn't seen that and they've not said it's okay. But then also we tried to kind of do a piece around interpretation. We just need to think about wording that we're using. Email closure, the word closure is somebody's going to read an email really quick. So we need to avoid certain words. But yeah, I think about a time when something failed spectacularly, and it was a key time of year, and that's never a good thing because marketing, as anybody
A
who's
pretty
in
big
marketing
one.
know, is if something doesn't go right, they're gonna, well, marketing messed that up, and
Yeah.
that was a thing that had happened that year, and I didn't write the email. I pressed the button. I pressed the button. So after that, we had to implement a whole bunch of processes, and it took a long time to kind of get that right. But I think that's one thing that a lot of places can get wrong, in particular when you're putting new processes into place. You don't think about certain things. And ultimately, I think that one needed somebody who wasn't in the business to proofread it before we sent it
Yeah. I
and
mean, I
just see what
imagine
they
this
did.
was before the age of AI and ChatGPT, but I think I've said this on every episode since we started, but one of the things I find really useful about ChatGPT is to ask how our customer, it understands our customer profile and stuff like ask how our customer might receive this.
Hmm.
What are some considerations that we might not have thought about? And it's just, I imagine that could have been quite useful at the time.
Oh, yeah. Don't use the word closure. Just
Don't
use
use
it.
the word closure. I was going to say, what's the key learning there? Is that it?
Yeah, the key wording, the key learning there was wording. The key learning is
Wording.
wording. Consider every single word you have on a page, especially if emails, you want them to be short, snappy, quick.
Mm.
But just saying, hey, an email box is closing, they will read that and they will see the word closing.
That's all you need.
That's
That's
all
what
you
you
need.
need. Sounds like the aftermath was a bit messy as well. I'm going to guess you didn't stay there too much longer.
Oh no, I was there for several years after.
Okay.
I was there for quite a long time, but it
Alright.
was just a matter of it was, as I say, it wasn't my mistake. It was a
No, no.
mistake that happened, and it was I think the thing there was it's sometimes in marketing you have to stand your ground.
Yeah.
That wasn't my fault. It wasn't the fault of my team. It wasn't the fault of the team that wrote it. It was a misunderstanding. And yes, a lot of people misunderstanding. We reacted really quick. That is the important thing. A lot of people thought, oh no, what are we doing? We really quickly threw together a graphic that said, open for business, and like, hey, some of you may have misread this email. This is what we were saying. And then we spent a long time considering how you go back and how you explain to somebody, hey, you've read the email wrong, but not saying you've read the email wrong. And yeah, I think that was kind of the start of hyper implementation of processes to make sure that we didn't say something that was going to scare somebody away.
Cool. And last but not least is what we're putting in Room 301. So for anyone that doesn't know, Room 301 is a place where we've put, so everyone we've interviewed on this podcast, all the experts have suggested something they don't like about marketing, something that really annoys them, they want to get rid of forever. Goes in Room 301, we close the door and we don't speak about it ever again. So what are you putting in there?
I'm putting in there like, hi, my name's Bill. I work in sales and marketing. You work in sales. You don't work in marketing. Um, I think it's one thing that people in marketing will come across a lot. The thing that I have the benefit of working in a big business is marketing is in some smaller businesses, it's important, but it's often an afterthought. And it's, well, that person's good at sales. They're quite good at their messaging. So they're sales and marketing. But in marketing, you have to be specialized. Like it doesn't matter what you do, even if you are a head of marketing, which I have been, you specialize in one thing. You're good at one thing. One thing is where your focus is. And the thing that I would like to leave behind is the view that marketeers do everything. Because can marketeers do everything? Yes. Can they do it well? The rare few. I'm a big believer that nobody is an expert. Nobody's an expert. I've worked in marketing for nearly 20 years. I have interviewed people who have claimed to be experts in marketing and they're 10 years younger than me. And, people that are 10 years older than me, I don't see them as experts because they don't know what's up and coming now. They don't know the newest trends, whereas the people that know the newest trends, they don't know why things are the way they are and why it's come to be. The kind of view that one person should be able to solve all the problems or that one department should be able to solve all the problems is just something that I've never seen work. And as I say, why I love working where I work now, because I work with a sales team. They specialize in sales. I tell them how to do their messaging better. I tell them how to tell better stories. And then likewise, when I go to marketing, I don't tell the ops person how to do an event. I don't tell them how to do customer stories. They give me some insight that makes my work better. And the view that one person can be everything, sales, marketing, whatever you might be, I I I do not subscribe to that. I think now that I've kind of specialized in product marketing myself and I've seen the benefit of working with a big business like I work with now, seeing how you rely on other people and you can't be everything. You have to be one thing to be good at that. And accept that you're not an expert, you're good at that. And you've got expertise, but you don't know everything. I've got staff that work for me. I have an intern, and I have another lady that's just recently started in the business. And I view myself as equal to them because yes, I know strategy, I know where we're going, but they've got the new ideas. I don't know everything, and I like to leave that there. Anybody who says that they know everything, they don't. They don't. And that's the kind of thing I think I would leave behind.
Hmm. I agree. I mean, we as an agency ourselves, we sometimes we find ourselves talking to. This probably happens more so with the smaller companies, but they might come to us and they want, let's say, a new website, SEO support, paid Google Ads support, and we go through this process where we talk to them about what we can do, what we can offer, but they opt to bring in one person to do all of those functions.
Mm.
And I think maybe a few years back that was, a bit easier than it is now. But I think now, in particular, marketing's so nuanced that you do need a group of people.
You do.
you do need a group of people who have got exposure to all these different parts of a marketing mix to make it work successfully. You can't rely on one person to do it all. And as you quite rightly said, that one person, yes, they're probably very good at one thing, but it actually just means you're going to compromise on all the other things, and you're never going to get a cohesive strategy doing that. So I agree, that's something that really frustrates me, and particularly, we don't often, we don't work with, tiny companies, so to speak, but it's happened to us a few times in the past where they've opted to not choose an agency support and get that holistic support, but instead bring somebody in, one individual to sort of cover it all. And I've not seen a successful case of that happening.
No, the thing I would add to what you're saying is bring that person in and watch them burn out in 6 months. If you want them to achieve all the things you want them to achieve, could they potentially? Potentially, yes, but it's also more likely that they're going to burn out.
100%. Well, look, Danny, thank you so much for being on. Now, before we go, tell us more about yourself. Tell us more about where you work, what you do, and how you got into marketing.
Yeah. So, my name's Dani. I'm a product marketer, as we've been through. I currently work for a business called SBS Software. They're based out of Paris, but as I've mentioned, we've got customers in 80 countries. As I say, I'm specializing in product marketing there. I've been there about 3 years. How I got started in marketing was, this is going to sound super cheesy. I've never been to school. And a lot of people hear that and they go, "How have you managed to get to the position you're in and you've not been to school?" Like I finished school, high school. I'm from the United States. I finished high school and I moved to the UK. And how I kind of got into marketing was before I'd moved over. My dad has a business in the United States. He does manufacturing. And in school, I was good at art and I was good at creative writing. That was what I was good at. And yeah, I was a button pusher for him for a while. Family business, you get involved, you muck in, you package some things, you do some assembly, that kind of thing. But then he came to a point where he realized he needed to expand. And I was like, you need a website, you need some marketing, you need some marketing material. So I'm that old that yes, I helped him create a like a trifold leaflet that he had, back in those days, sort of thing. And we created that initially. And then when I moved to the UK, I just kind of started mucking in, getting some jobs, working in customer service. But I always kind of had a little bit of a side role where I was getting involved in emailing customers and writing things because people would see, oh, she writes really good emails. We should get her to write that email, or we need to write a leaflet, or we need to write a piece for the website. And I kind of started doing bits and pieces like that. Um, and then I started a short-term contract with a business. Came in, they seen what I was capable of, and they asked me if I wanted to be the head of marketing. And it was like, yeah, sure. Can you do a website? I've never done it, but we'll figure it out. Have you ever done
Yeah.
SEO? I've never done it, but I'll figure it out. Sure. And I did everything in that role. Every piece of marketing you could. I hosted a podcast, believe it or not. So it's one of those things that I kind of got the expertise I got because I was given opportunities by people that I've met along the way. And that's one thing that, to me is really important. Where you've come from is really important. And it's really important for me now that I've got people that I lead. And throughout my career, when I've had people that I've led, it's important to me to give them that space to learn and grow and not to tell them how to do it. Because ultimately that's how I've learned. And that's with the people that I've managed. I've seen that that's the best way of approaching it. But yeah, I sort of just ended up where I ended up because I was good at a couple of things and some people gave me a chance. And when they gave me a chance, I was able to take a bigger chance. I was able to take bigger risks. And ultimately, I'm here because of a long line of people that saw me and appreciated me.
That's an awesome story. I love how you were saying that you figured it out.
You
I
have
think
to. You have to.
if I could describe my career journey, it's a lot of just figuring it out. And I
Yeah.
think that's you know for me that's the biggest difference between an A player and a B player. An A
Mm,
player is someone that will figure it out.
mm,
Even if they haven't got the skill set, they'll be resourceful enough to find somebody that can help them, support them.
mm,
Watch enough resources, read enough things to figure it out. A
mm.
B player, in my opinion, is somebody that just says, I can't do it.
The biggest advice I give to people when people come in, like the team that I've got now, is I'll say to them, I don't know everything. If you think I'm wrong, challenge me. If you fail and we need to fix it, fail fast, fail, fine, learn about it, fix it. And that's fine. You're going to fail. You're human. Um, and ultimately, I think the people that can stand up and not sit and go, well, why did that go wrong? Let's think about that. Let's no, stand up, keep going. You'll figure it out. You'll figure it out.
I concur. I concur. And on that note, thank you very much. Yeah, I love speaking to you. I think you've got some really good insights there, and hopefully listeners agree as well. More information, where would they find out more about you or your business, Dani?
More about me, you can find me on LinkedIn if you look for Dani McNabb. That's where I am. And SBS Software, based out of Paris in France, is where you can learn more about the business that I currently work for.
Excellent. And on that note, thank you all for listening. Thank you, Dani, and we'll see you again soon.
Thank you.